Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, or good night, wherever you are. And welcome to this, which is the 16th session on Karma Chamé's union of Mahamudra and Mahasandhi as the practice of Chinrezig. And today, as some of you may have seen on Facebook, today will actually be our last session on studying this text, and I'll explain that after we've done our prayers. So let's tune our mind to bodhicitta and to, how can you say, the beautiful truth of it all. We're here to learn in humility. We're here to serve all other beings. We're here to clean up our past. And so all of this is encapsulated in bodhicitta, which is the whole meaning and purpose of our precious human existences. So let's say our prayers with as much meaning and heartfelt loving care for everybody as we can muster. We take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the community of most noble minds. From this moment on, until we reach the very heart of enlightenment. Through our practice of generosity and all 6 transcendent virtues, may we reach total awakening and every enlightened quality to be able to truly help sentient beings who are so lost in samsara. May each and every one of those beings be well. May they live long and be healthy. May they be well provided for and have good friends. May they find respect and live in places of peace and plenty. Most of all, may they practice Dharma. May they each create the causes for those good circumstances to be their wealth in future lives. And may they be free from suffering and from creating causes of future suffering. May they discover the natural, sacred well-being that's totally beyond suffering and attain the great equanimity that's free of closeness or distance from anyone. Deyata shame shamavati shamita shatru mam kure marazite keyori tejuvati olo yani vishuddha nimale malapa Naye kukure kaka grase, grasana umuki paramuki amuki, shametane sawa graha bananane, negri hitva sawa pava, prawadena vimukta marapasha, satta pita buddha mudra anu gatita sava mare, butsarita parishude biga shantu, Savamara Kamani. Glorious Guru, source of all blessing, ever present above our heads on lotus and moon seat, through your immense kindness, ever sustain us, that the accomplishments of body and speech and mind flow from you, and we are one. So this week we'll finish our journey exploring the first part of Karma Chamé's text. And I know many of you have really appreciated it, either here online or in your own comments. You've said you found it very meaningful. And there's a reason for this. is because a lot of the time, these last years, we've been studying Buddhist ideas, Buddhist theory, which is very, very necessary to know and very sort of interesting, and it's basic Dharma that we need to get right so that we can practice as Buddhists. But the very core of the Buddha's practice, teaching, Buddhism, is practice. It's not study. The Buddha's life was one of teaching people how to practice. Buddhist study only emerged centuries afterwards. And what is now Buddhist study, it took that time for scholars to review all of his teachings and put them into order. So it's definitely about practice, because practice is the way we change ourselves. And if we don't change, then there is no Buddhist path, there is no Dharma journey, there is no result like we're praying for in those prayers. May I become enlightened to help beings. Well, most of us aren't enlightened yet, so we need to change. We need to change radically, a lot. And that's about practice. And as we've seen from the very beginning, all of Karma Chamé's wonderful advice is about practice. It's about being. It's about following the Dharma path. It's applied Buddhism. It's walking the talk. And I think you felt that and really appreciated it. And I think I said at the beginning, we'll go through this text and see how much of it we can cover. Maybe all of it, but maybe not. So personally, I received some strong guidance this week that this is the ideal place to stop, because we've finished everything which is these days, these centuries, known as the preliminaries or the foundation practice for the actual practice that Karma Chamé presents in the rest of his text. So before we carry on with the text, I want to tell you about my own teacher, Akon Rinpoche, and my life at Samiling as his assistant, but also, how can you say, it's very much somebody organizing Samiling and his Dharma centers. As some of you know, I was director of studies for all the Samilings and Samizongs at one point. And especially up to about the year 2000, I was very involved in the organization, the outer organization, bringing teachers, bringing lamas, preparing texts, interpreting for them, or fixing that up, and so on and so on. So one thing, Akon Rinpoche, who was so wise, I mean, he was really so wise and insightful, and especially about Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetans, Tibetan lamas, Tibetan Rinpoches, what goes on, and so on and so on. So one thing he was very strict about was people should only teach what they're authorized to teach on what they've mastered. And he was quite strict about that with the various Rinpoches that came. You have no idea how many Rinpoches wanted to come to Samiling in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It was kind of the big center in the West, certainly in Europe, and in the Tibetan world. When you get invited to the West, the West is it's like paradise. It's where people are rich, modern, civilized, and if you get invited there and go back, it's like you've got medals coming back from a campaign in the war. And so the number of Rinpoches who said, I'll be visiting Europe, would you like me to come to Samiling? And Akon Rinpoche would know which ones were authentic, which ones were 90% authentic, which ones were 20% authentic. And he'd say no, send them a polite refusal. But then the ones we invited, he wanted them to only teach what they were good at. Because he said Westerners don't know, they see the word Rinpoche, they see the word Lama. And he said they think that anyone who's a Lama or a Rinpoche can teach anything. And he said it's not like that. Some of the ones who are Rinpoches, quite famous, he said they're very learned, but they've not done much meditation, and I don't want them to teach meditation here. They should teach the study topics, and especially the ones they're very good at. And then also the ones who had mainly done meditation, but whose Dharma knowledge wasn't 100%, he said, I want them to teach meditation. And then those who teach meditation, says, this one's good at Chinrezig practice. They can teach Chinrezig practice in Samiling, but not teach Mahamudra. This one is a true Mahamudra yogi. They can teach Mahamudra, and so on. He was incredibly strict about visiting lamas and rinpoches. And he said, I can't say it in public, but if people want to know which lamas, which rinpoches are trustworthy, they should be able to look at Samiling's program and say, if Samiling invited them, then that's a teacher we can turn to. And he said, further than that, if they look closely, then they see what we've either invited them to teach or allowed them to teach. So does that make sense? Does that, I wanted to tell you about that. And then when it came to the Westerners that over the years became Samiling's teachers, he didn't want teaching to go to people's heads, to inflate their ego, because the whole point of the teaching is getting rid of ego. So, if the fact that I'm a teacher, I'm a Lama, goes to people's heads, then it just spoils everything. And in some people, there is a real urge. They want to be a Lama and a teacher. They're the worst ones. And I remember at the very beginning, we had Akon Rinpoche told me while Trungpa Rinpoche was here in Samiling, said there were 3 people who were close to him, and he told them, he said, whatever you do, never set yourself up as a teacher. He told them that. As soon as he'd gone to America, and as the years went by, all 3 of them set themselves up as teachers. Now, they set themselves up as teachers, and there are a lot of people who have, how can you say, become teachers. Basically, they've set themselves up. So what Akon Rinpoche wanted in Samiling, and he never got, in the 80s, the 90s, he says, what we need to make is some sort of a passport where each of our teachers, people who are helping other people, Dharma helpers, he called them, if they're teaching Khenpoken's ornament of precious liberation, then in the passport it says who they learnt it from and who authorized them to teach it, who said, you know it well enough now to teach it. And then for study topics and then meditation topics, can they teach refuge? Can they teach Vajrasattva practice? Can they teach shamatha? And he said each person, it should be very clear what they can, what they can't teach. So this happened at the time when Akon Rinpoche was more and more in Tibet, and Lama Yeshe was taking over Samiling, and he was developing his own teachers from mainly who'd been in retreat. And basically the other Samiling Dharma teachers, Lama Songmo, Donald, Rob Nairn in Africa, they didn't like the idea of the Dharma passport. And they already had quite a very, very useful teaching activity. It's not to put them down at all. It's just they didn't like the idea. And the other thing Akon Rinpoche said is we should have peer review. The teachers should sit in on the other people teaching and then come back honestly to me and say, what's right, what's wrong, so that we have transparency, clarity. But nobody wanted that. Lama Yeshe didn't want to impose it. So it never happened. But it is my guideline, because that's how Akon Rinpoche wanted it. And so ever since, I've tried to teach only what I'm allowed to teach. Now that falls into two areas. There's the official, how can you say, by the book Dharma, and there is the spirit of Dharma. I give you a simple example. If the requirement for something is having taken refuge, right? Well, we've been looking at that in the last weeks in this text. There are people who've taken refuge, they've taken the ceremony, they got a card, they got a name. Now they're Karma, wonderful goddess, or, now I'm pure light, whatever, they've got a name, they had their hair cut. Officially, they've taken refuge. Have they taken refuge in their heart? That's another story. What's their biggest priority in life? What do they treasure the most? Money, reputation, health, their own physique, Have they really taken refuge in the Buddha and his teaching and what he's telling us, and the Dharma, with all of its... The whole Dharma is about selflessness, service to others, and the Sangha. So there is the letter and the spirit, and the same with empowerment. He says, you can only do this practice if you've taken the empowerment. So many people have been to the empowerment ceremonies. Now, theoretically, they've taken empowerment. They've been there, they've queued up, they got touch with the ritual objects, they got, they went through the ceremony. But the real meaning of empowerment is transmission. The Lama's mind, the Guru's mind, and your mind, for a moment, they're connected. Something flows through that can never be taken away. And you have the presence of the empowerment, the presence of Chinrezig, the presence of whatever they're giving empowerment for. That's the real meaning. Otherwise, they say it's like a seed that's planted in you, but it's not grown yet. There is something. If they're an authentic, powerful Lama, then there is something that happens, but you haven't received the real empowerment. The real empowerment's life-changing by its very nature. If you experience the universal love, which is Chinrezig, you can never forget it. It's a life-changing, awakening, beautiful. You feel this is what life's really about, with any empowerment, all with their different qualities. So there's the spirit and there is the letter. And I know what I've been allowed to teach. I have very, very clearly each thing discussed with Akon Rinpoche. And now, you see, here we have a problem. We're in public. We have the immediate group here. You're a lovely group of people. I know most of you personally. And so what follows in this text, I would be very happy to carry on teaching. Would be allowed to teach it on a one-to-one basis if you were ready. with our little group. I think you're very open-hearted, sincere, good people. Most of you, I know most of you. But the problem is this goes on to YouTube afterwards. YouTube, I have no idea who watches it and so on. So this week I got quite a powerful guidance, I suppose you'd call it, very clear, is that this is the ideal time to stop. And we've stopped before the actual practice instructions, which are about how you practice Chinrezig as Mahamudra. Now, don't feel disappointed. With what we've done so far, you've got enough to practice. I don't think you can say I've done all that and I've mastered all the different chapters we've been doing. You've got a lifetime's work there. And if you know about Mahamudra and you do the Chinrezig practice, then you can apply what you know about Mahamudra, about appearances and voidness and so on. You can apply that to your Chinrezig practice. It's just I can't give the transmission of this particular text beyond the point we've got to, which those of you who know about foundation practices, Mundro, you'll see very clearly we've gone through the four common foundations, and then we've gone through refuge, bodhicitta, purification, mandala offering, and now what we did last time was the basic idea behind Guru Yoga practice. So this practice, like all practices, has foundations. Yeah, and that's as far as we've got. We've got a couple of verses to go to finish it. So I want to explain that I can't do anything else but stop here. This is a very clear message. There is blessing when one sticks to the rules and one does what is proper. Then somebody like me becomes, as we saw in the very, very last verse that we studied, if you think you're receiving the teachings properly, then I become not Ken, but I become a channel to the Kaju lineage and to the Karma Chamé lineage through which I receive these teachings and through which they've touched your heart. So that's good. But now is the time to stop, because I wouldn't be comfortable. And so we stop here. So I hope that's okay. And I hope you're not too disappointed. If you are disappointed, look into why you're disappointed and realize all the treasures you've been given so far and so much that you can practice. So starting next week, we're going on to, I was looking back over all these years of Zoom and so many different topics we've covered, and there's one topic that is very important, vital, basic, and a wonderful topic, which is the 7-point mind training. Of the Kadampa lineage. And so we'll start that next week. I'm very, very happy to start that. And now this is the curious bit. 7-point mind training, right? 7 points. Point number 1 is 1 sentence, 4 words. First, comma, do the preliminaries. That's everything we've studied in these last 15, and including today's 16 sessions. First do those, okay? Then we can go on to point 2. So we'll look at that next week. But it's hilarious, that first 4 words, the first of the 7 points. So anyway, let's get back to this text. and our studies. So we finished looking at this verse about how to view your guru or your teacher. And it's saying if you can view the teacher as Buddha Vajradhara, you'll get through that teacher Buddha Vajradhara's blessing somehow, because we've all got Buddha nature, because Buddha Vajradhara is everywhere. And then if through the connection we see our own teacher, then they will become Buddha Vajradhara for us. And there's something very wonderful about teaching. Many people who are teachers, not necessarily Dharma teachers, counselors, therapists, and so on, experience a bit of this. Sometimes when helping other people, more than you comes through. When you're there, somehow that person hears what they need to hear. They get what they need to get. And you're surprised yourself. And they're usually very grateful. That will make sense to some of you. And so we can be a channel for something much more than ourselves. And when we look at the Guru Yoga practice, it's a lot of teaching and a lot of practice about how to make that really, really perfect. When we do 100,000 of them and put them into practice. And there are lots of curious repercussions to this. It gets quite tricky. It's very tricky to talk about actual people, but sometimes they're good examples. Yeah, so there's one, for instance, one person who was a wonky Rinpoche, who was, 16th Karmapa, the present Dalai Lama, all said what he did was shameful. He's dead now. It was Sogyal Rinpoche, okay? And so if you know the story, then you know the scandal. But this is the difficulty. Lots of people saw him as the reincarnation of this, Guru Rinpoche on earth, wonderful Lama, and they got the blessing. So when sometimes in public, I've had to say to people, because they've asked, Sogyal Rinpoche better to avoid. And then sometimes people say, but I got so much from him, and he really helped me. And I was in the Rigpa organization, or then I've read Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. It really changed my life. It set me on the path. And you see, there's not all good and all bad. Life's tricky. Life is confusing. And there's another person, Uli Nudal, Danish person who died very recently. And I remember in 1977, he was traveling with us for 6 months with the Karmapa. And I remember the previous Jamgon Rinpoche saying, he will be excellent for beginners. He's so enthusiastic, so full of energy, if he sticks to that. But if he goes beyond that, it will be a catastrophe. So unfortunately, he went beyond that. And he ended up calling himself Lama and giving Mahakala empowerments and all sorts of things he shouldn't have done. One of his own gurus, who was in Supu, told him, you have broken your samaya terribly by doing this. You need to spend the rest of your life in purification, and then maybe then you won't have bad karmic consequences after you die. But his organization, it's touched tens of thousands of people. It's brought them to Dharma. For many people, he was the person they first met who introduced them to Dharma. And so, because they were pure-hearted, they thought this is Dharma, they thought this person can channel the Buddha's teaching, the Tibetan teachings. So their good mind and good heart brought many blessings to them through an impure channel. They only got the purity. I think we're grown-up people. We're in this modern world where Tibetan Dharma has sort of hit the West, and it is what it is. There's some wonderful things in there. There's still some very pure things in there. There's a lot of rubbish in there too. A lot of things that ought never to be there, but they're there. And so that last verse we looked at is very, very interesting. And I think the message for us very, very, very much is don't look too much to the person. Because people will, more often than not, disappoint. Look to the teachings, and if they're pure teachings, then that's good. They've got a terrible saying in Tibet, sort of gory. It says about a musk deer. A musk deer has this gland which makes the most expensive perfume. It says, make sure you get the musk. Forget the deer, get the musk. So get the pure Dharma teaching, get the pure instruction. Take that away. It's a treasure. It's more precious than anything. And incredibly powerful. Have any of you ever smelt real musk? I have a tiny piece in Scotland that a Lama gave me. It is so beautifully perfumed and powerful. This is Dharma. Even the simplest Dharma. Karma Chamé often said, one idea can be all you need for your whole life if you really apply it. If you really look into it. What is refuge? Who was Buddha? Simple things, when you really explore them, they blow your mind. Whereas you can learn hundreds of things and your mind's not blown. You just want to learn a few hundred more things and keep on going. So anyway, that verse gives us a lot of food for thought. And then also I've known a lot of people, good people who've been years in Dharma centers, who've turned their back on Dharma because the centers, the people have in the end disgusted them, disappointed them. They've invested too much in the human community or in a center and it's running. They've given, very often people say, I've given years of my life. I've given all my money. I've given this, or I really trusted that teacher, and they've been burned. Good people have been lost. So we need to keep our eye on the ball, the three refuges. The authentic Dharma will never disappoint you, never. Buddha is who you truly are. It's what the universe is all about. It will never disappoint you. And the realized Sangha, true bodhisattvas, they will never disappoint you because they're pure. So let's move on from that verse. We've not finished it, we've just looked at the words and the ideas. To the next verse, which is about Samaya. Samaya means sacred commitment. I think that's probably the truest meaning translation. The Sanskrit word samaya is beautiful sounding. Words with lots of A's in them sound very, very nice to me. Samaya. And so the verse says, if after having entered the Dharma and received empowerment and the reading transmission, this is often called lung, the Tibetan word lung, and instruction, if after having entered those and received those, you don't observe your vows and your tantric commitments, it will be just like having made medicine and letting it turn to poison. It will be your downfall. Although it's difficult to maintain commitments for someone who does not know in detail how to keep them, one will manage to keep them if one sticks to their essence as follows. In order to keep all the refuge precepts, it suffices to entrust one's mind to the three jewels and to maintain total confidence in them. In order to keep the pratimoksha precepts, the training precepts of self-liberation, it suffices to never let yourself be drawn into harming another being. So there is that verse. Let me explain the words first before commenting on it. So if after having entered the Dharma, so in this case it means entered the Mahayana Dharma. So there's the spirit and there's the letter. Entering the Dharma is taking refuge. So you can say, according to the rule book, you need to have taken refuge. That's entering the door of Dharma. But then Dharma historically has evolved to Shravaka Dharma, that we find these days in the Theravada tradition, and Mahayana Dharma, that we find in the Zen and Tibetan and traditions mainly, Thich Nhat Hanh and so on. So in order to enter that tradition, then you need refuge and the what are called pratimoksha vows, or some of them, and to have taken the bodhisattva vow. That's what those first few words are about. Technically, one needs to have done those. In the spirit of it, you really need to have taken refuge from your heart. No matter what happens in this life, it's just one life. You get lots of lives. I don't know if you really believe this yet. We get lots of them. We've had so many you would never believe. All gone. Can't even remember most of them. Lucky people remember bits and pieces from some of them. And you'll get many, many more. And some of them are happy lives and some of them are tragic lives. It's karma. Simple as that. It's happening to us all the time. But we must keep our eye on what is sacred and perfect. We mustn't get drawn into the values of this world, this age, this time, its corruption. It's a dirty place. We must go through it and keep our heart pure. Trust the goodness inside us, the peace that's our Buddha nature, the love that's our Buddha nature, the deep clear wisdom. That's our Buddha nature, all of the qualities. We need to entrust ourselves to that for all of our lifetimes, taking refuge. That's the spirit of it, seeing this life as, temporary. It's compared in the text like a not very nice hotel. I mean, hotel's a modern word, whatever they had a couple of thousand years ago, a place where guests stay when they're traveling, and some are crappier than others. So it says, if that's where it's the only place in town you've got to stay overnight on your journey, yeah, okay, you accept that's what it is, but you don't get drawn into it. You don't get dirtied by it. You know where you're going. You don't let it drag you down. You don't let the innkeeper's daughter or son seduce you. Careful with the food. It might give you a bad stomach. So even though you're passing through, keep your eye on the ball. So the real spirit of refuge is that. Then if we look at the second refuge, Dharma, when we look at the precepts of refuge, there are 9. When we take refuge, if you take refuge properly, you should learn the 9 precepts that you've committed yourself to by taking refuge. So the fourth one, often it's the fourth one, but it's in the second set of 3. It says, having taken refuge in the Dharma, do your utmost every day never to harm any other sentient being. It says, because the very nature of Dharma is non-harm, ahimsa. Sometimes that's translated as non-violence. Violence is a very powerful word. Violence, violence is, well, we all know what it is, violent. The word ahimsa means you don't damage or hurt anybody. Your life is not a damaging life, including to yourself. You're not damaging yourself anymore. And you're certainly not damaging other people. So this is the very nature of Dharma. Buddha teaches us how to no longer hurt other beings with our body or with our speech. They're the ways we affect other beings, with our speech and then physically with what we're doing, directly or indirectly. So then, if we expand that, we understand the next topic, the next set of commitments, which are called pratimoksha. Pratimoksha, prati means oneself, moksha means liberation. So they're called the vows of self-liberation. How do you free yourself from karma? You free yourself from harmful karma. I mean, good karma you don't need to be free from. We're not talking about good karma. You don't need to be freed from good karma. But harmful karma, how do you stop it? How do you stop it? You stop it by stopping making the causes of it. So you free yourself by never damaging other beings, physically or sexually, or through theft and taking away what is dear to them, what keeps them alive, and so on. So physically, we learn to free ourselves from making harmful karma. And then verbally, we refrain from what harms others by not lying, refraining from harsh speech, and divisive speech which sets people against each other, and time-wasting speech, and so on. So the pratimoksha vows are the basic Buddhist precepts of non-harm. are very often summed up as, the 5 vows. In Samiling they call them the 5 golden rules: not killing, not stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, no intoxicants. So this is basic self-preservation. They're called pratimoksha. So we need to have taken one of those as an official vow in front of a teacher qualified to give them, and to have taken refuge before we can take the bodhisattva vow, which is the formal requirement for being a bodhisattva. Of course, being a bodhisattva is about how you are, how you think, how your heart is, how you relate to other people. This idea of service, this seeing the folly of ego, and how it's sanity, or it's holy, whichever way you look at it. To serve other people, to serve everyone, to put yourself last. Or, in fact, forget yourself if you can. So, of course, you can't do this overnight, but we're learning to do it. That's the main thing. We see this is what it's all about. Less me, more an awareness of what's going on and the suffering, the endless, enormous suffering that people are making for themselves. It's insanity. It's vicious habit. And we need to be able to be wise enough, strong enough, kind enough, stable enough to be able to help them. So that's the bodhisattva journey. So those are the first lines. I also wanted to say that, in going back to what I was explaining at the beginning, the bodhisattva vow formally, it says in Gampopa's teachings, if you can, take it from a real living bodhisattva. And so in Samiling, bodhisattva vow was only given very rarely. Akon Rinpoche asked Taisitrupa to give it. Of course, the 16th Karmapa, when he was there in the early days. And then Dumo Choji Rinpoche, these people who are really bodhisattvas. Khenpo Damcha Dawa, when he was there, although he was very reluctant, he said, no, people should go to someone who is so obviously a radiant bodhisattva in this world. He said, I don't want to give it. And Akon Rinpoche said, you have to. So he gave it. But the point is, it's a transmission. It's a connection. That person who gives you your bodhisattva vow, you'll probably be connected to life after life. So if you make a wonderful, beautiful connection, you've got an incredible friend for all the lives to come. Somebody's going to help you out, meet up with you, appear in your life, if this is a real bodhisattva. So it does say in the formal teachings, it's much better to wait, or even to go through a lot of hardship and travel to get the bodhisattva vow from a real, authentic bodhisattva, if you can. So anyway, to get back to this verse, if after having entered the Dharma, okay, that's what we've just done. Refuge, pratimoksha vows, 5 precepts, bodhisattva vow. And then, now we get into Vajrayana Dharma, you've received empowerment, you've received the scriptural transmission, the reading of the text, and practice instructions. It says, if then you don't observe your vows and your tantric commitments, it will be like having made medicine, found medicine, but it's a medicine that corrupts and becomes poison. It's like food. Food is nourishing, but if you leave it, then it can become very, very, very poisonous, can make you very ill. And some things which can be great medicine at the right time can also become great poisons. So it says, it will be your downfall. So a lot to think about. You could make an argument for being stupid, right? Staying ignorant. Because the problem is, the more you know, the more powerful your karma is. And people who don't know about karma, don't know about good and evil, virtue and non-virtue, don't know about Vajrayana and the meaning of keeping the precepts and the samaya. Their karma is weak. The more you are awake, the more powerful your karma is, and the repercussions over the following lifetimes are stronger and stronger. So if we can keep everything deliciously pure, true to Dharma, then the more we wake up and we understand what's going on, then we're making such powerful investment for our future journey. That's wonderful. It's something very, very wonderful. And that's why we do dedication. That's in the next verse. But if we are awakened and we do harmful things, and in particular we break our commitments, then this makes powerful, harmful karma for future lives. It brings a lot of misfortune. Nobody wants misfortune. It's no good for anybody. So this is what this is saying. It will be your downfall. So the word is commitment, samaya. We need to savor the word. I'm committed. It's all the time from now on. You could translate literally the term samaya as sacred promise. Promises aren't so good. I think we've got a whole history of making promises and breaking them. New Year's resolutions and all the rest of it. Commitment is like, I've signed up. I'm committed. I've taken the pledge. I'm really committed. It's difficult. It says in the next verse, although it's difficult. Why is it difficult? It's because we take sacred commitments when we're inspired. Problem is we don't remain inspired. In those wonderful moments of blessing, of insight into the loving nature of the universe that we're in, or in moments when we meet great teachers and we feel, this is what I want to do. That's very often when we take refuge, take the Bodhisattva vow, whatever. We're in a good place. We see clearly. But we are creatures of habit. So the inspiration fades, the old habits come back, we slip back into samsara, and then it's very hard, even sometimes, to remember how inspired we were. Until the next time you get inspired, then it all comes back and you realize just how you've slumped into stupidity and samsara and the old habits. This is real. This happens all the time because we are creatures of habit. And if we break commitments in this life, it makes a very, very bad habit for the next life when you meet those commitments again. And rather than what it says about commitments, it says, treat them like you treat your eyes. You protect them. You don't want to damage your eyes. You'll be blind. You'll never see again. So it says, although it's difficult to maintain commitments, and then he helps us. He gives us the rest of the verse. But before we go there, and while we're in the heavy part, the first part of this verse, then I need to tell you that in Vajrayana, Tantra, Vajrayana, there are 4 levels of Tantra: Kriya, Upa, Yoga, highest Yoga, Tantra. In general, each level has its own commitments, and then within each level, each practice, when you receive it properly, has its own special commitments. You should do this, you shouldn't do that. Maybe a commitment you need to do at least so many mantras every day or whatever. So each practice within each level has its own commitments. It's very complicated. But then we're not doing all the practices. We don't need to know all the different commitments, but we do need to know, if we're in Vajrayana and we're doing a practice, what are the commitments? Generally, in Vajrayana, there are what are called 14 root samayas, 14 root commitments that apply to nearly all Vajrayana practices that we need to observe. So when we're in the serious practice stage of Vajrayana, when it's kind of your everything, your Yidam practice, then we do need to know about those and to keep them. So now, once we know that, he says, for someone who does not know in detail how to keep them, one will manage to keep them if one sticks to their essence as follows. In order to keep all the refuge precepts, it suffices to entrust one's mind to the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and to maintain total confidence in them. In order to keep the training precepts of self-liberation, it suffices to never let yourself be drawn into harming another being. Yeah. So much to explain, but keeping it simple. And we just took Bodhisattva, Vajrayana. Okay, they're very complicated, they're very sacred, they're very powerful. But Vajrayana is only there to help you do what your refuge is all about. To awaken your mind to the Buddha within, and to help stop you from harming anybody else. If you visualize yourself as Chinrazik, which is what you're supposed to do, if you're doing Chinrazik practice, would Chinrazik ever harm anybody physically? Would Chinrazik steal something from somebody? Would Chinrazik say something that is wounding to somebody else? Of course not. So although it's very elaborate and very complicated, and there are so many rules and so much to do, the outer practice, the inner practice, the secret practice, the most secret practice, when you look closely, it's all to do with refuge and pratimoksha. So Karma Chamé gives us the essence. Juji Kosho Wang Long Tri Tomne Dompadamsik Sumaramachena Minche Dukdu Songtar Pumpara Pungwara Che Sungsol Shiparamishi Sunkayang, Dun Tsachiktu Dune, Sungwetu, Chise, Cheshe, Koncho, Lokalni, Chamdroi Dompa Tamche Delatu, Shenlan Napa, Namya Michel, Na, Dultrim Sotara Dompa Delatu. And then the other one's Bodhisattva vow. And we've looked at refuge, how to keep refuge, how to keep your Pratimoksha vow. The other ones, if you take Bodhisattva vow, then at that time you should receive instructions about what you need to do to keep the sacred commitment. And we study that in Gampopa's text. Ideally, you repeat your Bodhisattva vow in the 6 periods of the day. And then you avoid the 4 dark actions, you commit the 4 bright actions, and so on. All the instructions are there for Bodhisattva vow, for the aspiration vow, and for the practice vow. And then if we receive empowerment and the Lung and the practice instructions for a particular Vajrayana practice, if it's done properly, you'll have the Samaya explained to you at that time. That's why it's not explained here. The next verse is about dedication. And so it says, dedicate all virtue to the universal benefit of beings, and try to benefit others as much as you are able. This suffices for keeping the Bodhisattva precepts. So the simple version of what we should receive as a full teaching when we take the vow is this. It's the essence of the vow. How you doing? All right. So, Bodhisattva vow, it's a big deal. And there's one way of giving it. It doesn't happen much these days. I think it's a bit of a pity. It's a 3-day retreat. And on the first day you receive extensive teachings from your Bodhisattva Guru about what it's all about. And you think about those on the first night. Then there's a second day of reflection. And then it's only when you've digested all of that and you feel really ready that then on the third day, or on the second day, you get the vow. And then the third day, you have time to really think about it and digest it. These days, often it's a walk-in, walk-out ceremony. You go in, you attend, sometimes you get a bodhisattva name. Sometimes that's quite funny. It's how can you say that? Lamas who want people to feel good give each one a bodhisattva name. So this is your bodhisattva name now. Although everybody sees you as Ken Holmes, your bodhisattva glorious light. It kind of gives a special feeling. There are other lamas, so if you've got 200 people there who've just taken the bodhisattva vow, they give them all the same name, which is, I like, because, it's not about you anymore. Bodhisattva is, we're all at the service of everybody. We're agents of Buddha. It's not about you anymore, it's about everybody. So I kind of really like that in a way. But both ways are very valid. They've got their own meaning. I am fortunately not a Rinpoche or a Lama of any sort. I'm just a person who rattles on about Dharma. But if I was a Rinpoche, and if I was giving Bodhisattva vow, I'm not quite sure which one I'd do, whether I'd give everybody the same name or give each person a special name. You know, when it's these ceremonies, like refuge, I shouldn't let you into the inside secrets, but sometimes the day before a refuge ceremony, the Rinpoche gives me his cards and says, I need 100 boys' names and 100 girls' names, for refuge. So you have to make them up. The Tibetan, the translation, and then you make a pile. So they basically got male pile, female pile. And as people come up for the refuge, they take one from the top of the pile and they say, your refuge name is, Karma Chamé Rinpoche or whatever. Occasionally they will look at the card and look at the person and put that one to one side and see if the next name is more suitable, if they get a feeling about it or if they know the person. But you're not supposed to know that, so some people think, I got this as my refuge name, it's absolutely perfect for me. And of course, by a sacred coincidence, sometimes that happens. You get just the right name. I know my refuge name, sometimes Rinpoches would hear it and say, who gave you that name? It's like, who called you that? And they'd say, this is a monk's name. But anyway, my best friend got as a refuge name Karma Obstacle. And he couldn't understand why he was called that. And then he died very young. He had an obstacle to his life. Strange, these things. So anyway, the point here is whatever good thing you do, and let's hope we do lots and lots of good things with our body, helping people, with our speech, helping people, and with our mind, making the mentality, the basic mentality of service. Whatever good we do, we immediately let go of it and share it. We don't let our ego cling to it, give us a pat on the back, tell ourselves how good we've been, whatever. Or, Did you ever see some of these Korean military with their medals? They have sometimes like about 60 or 100 different coloured stripes. They've got medals for all sorts of things, whether they've ever fought anywhere in their whole life, but they get medals. People get Dharma medals. They went to this course, they got this empowerment, they went to this teaching, and they brag about it. Or even if they don't brag about it, they cling to it. They identify with it. They feel better than other people because of it. And that is no good for ego. The whole thing's about getting rid of the illusion of ego. So whatever good we do, we immediately give it to everybody. It's like with holy people in India in the past, Hindu, Buddhist, doesn't matter. Whatever people gave to them, and often they gave them a lot, within the same day they give it away. Some of the Babas and the Sadhus and the holy Hindu gurus, they're very famous for receiving so many offerings and giving them all away totally unattached. Buddhist teachers too. A very famous story of Patrul Rinpoche, somebody gave him a huge piece of silver. He lived wild, he camped. He lived outdoors with a simple tent. He'd find a hollow or an overhang and meditate. People came to him. Somebody gave him a very valuable piece of silver. When it was time to move camp, he just left it on the ground where it was. And his attendant said, you better take that. It's really valuable. It's precious. The person gave up a lot to offer you that. And Patrum said, don't want money. Don't want it. And they went off. And then he came across somebody, a woman who was very poor, very much in need for her family. And he sent his attendant back. He said, that piece of silver, go back and get it and give it to her. His life was famous for the non-attachment to things. So it's an inner discipline. Whatever good you've done with your mind or whatever good you've done with your body and speech, we learn to not stick to it. We let it go. We give it to everyone. We offer it up to all the Buddhas. We dedicate it to everybody. And then we forget about it and move on. It's a very, very free life. I talk too much. But I mean, there's an opposite to that, is where you're stuck to your Dharma history, to your medals, I used to be, I was, Ken. I used to be a director of studies, for Samuel Ling and for all the... That's gone. That was over 25 years ago. But it's still in here. There's still a Ken who was like this. When you can just let go and move on. This is real spiritual freedom. You're not attached to who you were, the good old days. Or, I love telling my stories when I was with 16th Karmapa. They're lovely memories for me, they're helpful stories. But it was kind of, a peak. But it's gone. It was, 50, 60 years ago. So this ability to really move on will help you when you die. He's fly away. Nothing to cling to. All of Dharma is about not clinging. So dedication helps us with that. We let go of anything and everything that's good. We dedicate it to everybody's benefit. And then in the reality of daily life, we try and benefit others as much as we're able. As much as we're able. So that's the essence of keeping the Bodhisattva precepts. I mean, you can keep them literally. You can stop 6 times a day and do You've kept the rules. But the real spirit of the Bodhisattva vow. And then the next verse, so that was Gewa Tamchi Drowa Chilango Rangi Chinu Shenla Pendakna Janchup Sempi Dompa de la Tu. And the next verse is about Vajrayana Samaya, keeping it. Regard your root guru as inseparable from the yidam. To never hold a wrong view about the guru is the essential point of all the samayas of secret mantra. So the 4 levels of tantra, thousands of different practices, all the different rules that you must keep, or the things you mustn't do. It says to always see one's guru as pure. That's the essence of it. And pure how? As your yidam. Now this yidam is Tibetan word. Yi means mind. Dam means connection. Mind connection, mind bridge. Yidam is what connects us to our Buddha nature inside and connects us to all the Vajrayana, gurus, Buddhas, protectors outside. It's like now, right? You're online, right? What happens if your connection goes? It's just you in your room. You're back there just now. You're with your friends in this teaching. That connection is vital. Take away the connection. The friends are still there, but you're not connected to them anymore. Ken's still there, but you're not connected to the teaching anymore if the connection drops. Yidam is your mind bridge to who you really are, what this life is all about, inside and then out there. All of the wonderful, holy people helping us live a spiritual life. So the essence is to always see one's guru as Chinrezik or Tara or whatever one's Yidam is, unfailingly. So when we do Guru Yoga practice, we learn about this, the teachings in detail, how to really do it properly and the things that can happen, how to deal with them. So here, we're just seeing the spirit of it, the real point. Tsawelama yidam yermeta, de la lokta namyang machena, sonatan septanche de la tu. And then the last verse, the gurus will bestow their blessings, and the yidams will grant their siddhis to someone who keeps the precepts and Vajrayana commitments in the above way. And it's certain that the Dakinis and Dhammapalas will clear away their obstacles. So it's when we take refuge in the gurus, we say take refuge in the gurus who are the source of all blessing. Blessing. Yeah, blessing basically means connection, sacred connection. We take refuge in the yidams. They are the source or the root of all the siddhis, all the special accomplishments. So this becomes very real if you do things like retreat, 6 yogas, each of the special yogas, dream yoga, tummo, and so on, comes through a yidam practice. Very special historical transmission. And then if we come down to the end, the dakinis, the dakas, dakinis, dhammapalas, dhamma protectors will clear away their obstacles. Ho, ho, ho. But your obstacles aren't karma. Your obstacles aren't there. It doesn't mean they're going to sort your life out. Take away your difficult people, take away your difficult health, take away karma. Clear away obstacles. The obstacles are in here. It's how we relate to difficult people, how we relate to ill health, how we relate to whatever karma, bad karma, is throwing at us. The obstacle is that those difficult life circumstances, and sometimes they're really difficult, could cause us to lose our good heart. That's the obstacle. You could lose your refuge. You could lose your bodhisattva mind. You could lose your tantric samaya because worldly circumstances make you a habitual worldly person. So when we do very often prayers, may obstacles not arise on the Dharma path, or may we clear away the obstacles for all sentient beings. It's not a magic karma vacuum cleaner. It is about in here, the obstacles to our practice. So with that, now we've finished our journey up to this point where the actual practice instructions start. I really hope it's been of value to you. And as always in the teachings, there's so many teachings, even one point, one thing, if it clicks, if it hits home, it can be life-changing for you. So I hope some things have helped your life change for the better. I think Karma Chamé's teachings are unbelievably sacred and helpful. I hope through our 16 sessions, through this text, that his invisible blessing, which is beyond time and space, will be with you, will guide you in your practice. He was very close to Akon Rinpoche's family lineage, very, very special Lama, somebody whose blessing is transmitted through his teachings, like Gampopa. Gampopa said, anyone who reads my ornament of precious liberation and takes it to heart, it's no difference from having met me in person. So I hope these teachings in your inner life help you feel the guidance, the purity, the loving care of Karma Chamé Rinpoche. Is something very, very special. And it's something that told me last week, stop there. Okay, stop here. So now let's dedicate using the Mani dedication, which I think you've also enjoyed. We prostrate to the Dharmakaya, union of all the Buddhas of the three times. And we prostrate to the one who gazes upon the six kinds of beings, Chimrasic, 11-faced and all-pervading like space. And to awesomely impressive, majestic Amitabha, Om Mani Padme Huri, Om Mani Padme Huri, Om Mani Padme Huri. Through this quintessence of all Dharma in 6 syllables, may a cloud of offerings appear, and may they be presented to the peerless guide Chimrasic, and to Shakyamuni, king of the sages, crowning glory of all the Shakyas, and to an ocean of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arhants in all the 10 directions, and to our Kaju Lamas. Om Mani Padme Huri. May the fulfillment of the wishes of the former Buddhas, the completion of the accumulations of future Buddhas, and the long life prayers of the present Buddhas all be made manifest through the 6 syllables, Om Mani Padme Huri. All those who have a karmic link with us, our fathers, our mothers, our teachers, our relatives and friends, all those who place their hopes in us and rely on us. Protector Chimrasic, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Huri. All those who've been our benefactors and asked us not to forget them, all the kind benefactors we promised never to forget. Protector Chimrasic, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Huri. All the dead for whom lamas have been asked to say prayers, all those who passed away from this life, of whose possessions we received a share. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way, and grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hori. All the artisans who make our Dharma goods, such as the representations of the body, speech and mind of all the Buddhas, and those whose livelihood involves the belongings of lamas or the Sangha, or ransom obtained through selling sacred images, or from goods folk make as offerings out of faith. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hori. The dead I've heard about, we've heard about, or seen with our own eyes, and all those in the 3 dimensions of conditioned existence who pass away. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hori. All those who've been murdered, or who died from starvation, or who perished on high mountain passes, or were drowned, or those who wander in the bardo, accompanied by so much sin and so little virtue. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hori. The most kind mother cow, whose milk and yogurt we've consumed, all the animals mass farmed or otherwise cruelly exploited by humans, all the animals whose flesh and blood we've eaten, and the bees and insects on whose labor human life depends. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hori. All the pack animals, overburdened with loads they can hardly bear, and beasts who are beaten while being ridden, and those that wouldn't budge and had their noses pierced for pulling with a rope, plough animals, all the beasts we've exploited in past lives, wherever they're now reborn. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hori. Those who've committed the 10 unvirtuous actions and the 5 immeasurable sins of no reprieve and the 5 sins almost as great, all those with such bad karma, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hori. Those in the hells, craving spirits, animals, jealous semi-gods, gods and humans, all sentient beings in the 3 dimensions of conditioned existence, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hori. All those who live in the 4 elements of earth, water, fire and wind, whether in bodily form or formless, small or large, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hori. Rulers, monsters, citizens steeped in corruption, bad humans who are shameless, deceitful, hypocritical, those with ill will in their hearts. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hori. Infinite as all the cosmic systems in the 10 directions, all beings as difficult to reckon as the unfathomed deeps. Protector Jinrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. Beings who live in each province of this, our world, or anywhere on similar planets under their suns, Protector Jinrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Well, thank you. And it's your turn. Now, if you've got something you'd like to add or question you'd like to ask.
Ben,
Yes, Rose, yeah.
have I got it right that Karma Chamé was also a master of White Torah?
Offhand, I can't answer, I don't know.
The reason that I was wondering is that in one of the prayers before the actual White Torah practice, I mean, usually you go through a list of masters of that particular
Yeah,
practice.
yeah.
There seems to be a Karma Chamé that
That
is,
would, yeah. That would be
so,
him then, yeah.
yeah. Because the other part of the question is, I was wondering, using what we've gone through, we could also apply this to the White Torah practice if that's a practice that we're doing as well.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, the
Absolutely.
transmission of that, what you've transmitted is what you've transmitted here, and obviously, if we apply it to a different practice, I mean, in a sense, they're not the same transmission, but it's still applicable.
It's still applicable because the spirit and the meaning and the
Yeah.
purpose of the ngondro, all of the levels of preparation, from the 4 common ones, the 4 special ones, 4 extra special ones.
Okay.
The spirit is the same.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, for instance, with Guru Yoga, Guru is always connected to lineage. So in the Kaju, it's the Kaju lineage. When we think of all those masters going all the way back to Buddha Vajradhara, if it's in the Nimapa tradition, think of Guru Rinpoche, it's 25 disciples, and so details are different, but the whole point is the same. The Guru is only a Guru because they embody a transmission, a lineage. So, of course, it applies. And then, let's say it wouldn't be at all surprising if Karma Chamé was very special for the White Tara practice. So this goes back to his life story, where he was a very learned master anyway, but then in his life there appeared this person called Tulku Minjo Dorji, And Mingyur Dorji was a real emanation of the Buddha mind and a visionary. And he gave the world many practices, especially related to Chinrezig and Amitabha and Dewachen. And so that family, which is called the Lotus family, Amitabha's Dhammakaya, Chinrezig is Sambhogakaya, and then the two Taras are also Sambhogakaya and Chinrezig, and the two Taras manifest in Nimanakaya form. That whole Lotus family of the five Buddha families was very much revealed to us by Mingyur Dorji. So Mingyur Dorji was a kid. He was very young when he had these visions, I think 11 years old, I forget, but something like that. He was Karma Chamé's disciple. With time, Karma Chamé became sort of his disciple, in as much as Karma Chamé had all of the literary skills and Dharma knowledge skills to put Mingyur Dorji's visions into actual practices that we can do. So the practices we get were formulated by Karma Chamé based on Mingyur Dorji's visions. But the two of them were inseparable, and they brought to this world fairly late on, because it's only a few hundred years ago, 300-400 years ago, these teachings which are now very, very prevalent. You know, if we do Amitabha practice for the dead and so on, where did that come from? It came from Karma Chamé and Mingyur Dorji and Chinrezig teachings, so many of them. So I don't know the details, but it wouldn't be at all surprising that White Tara and Tara also comes through Karma Chamé.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, Myron. Yeah.
I wanted to thank you again and again for just being an amazing person and carrying this lineage and transmission in plain English. You know, we don't have to listen to some funny language or something. It comes straight from the heart, right? You know, from the gurus through you and clear, loving tones. You know, so it's just really wonderful that we're able to do this. So congratulations.
Great. Immediately dedicated.
It's been a wonderful whole series, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it. One thing, you know, I appreciate what you said in the beginning about the passport and the internet and who the hell is going to click on this.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. So then I appreciate all that. And I appreciate that you mentioned that you really feel as if you could share it with an intimate group, but not on the internet.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to do that for some reason, I know a few people that would like to join you.
Yeah.
I think they're right here on display. So I would vote for not putting it on the internet, but for us moving forward at some point in time,
Yeah.
you know, in a intimate way. So then, you know, they call this virtual. I think virtual used to mean real, but now it means now it means internet. But it is almost I think it's almost the same connection. And I've heard Rinpoche say this, that like in India, there'll be a football field size, you know, audience, and they'll have a couple big screens and everybody's got speakers and headphones in different languages. So it's the same thing as doing Zoom. Isn't really any different.
Yeah,
There's
there's different
the mind
opinions about
itself.
this. Yeah. There's
Yeah,
big
everybody's got
debate
different.
amongst Tibetan lamas about what transmissions you can and can't give electronically. There are some people who think it's fine, other people who think no way, and quite important people. They've got different opinions. But I think the essence of all of this, you know, and thank you for your suggestion, is to remember we've got lots more lives, lots more lives. So let's, you can make, according to your own heart, deep wish to be reunited with these teachings, take them further in future lives. Some things we want to.
It's all seems very familiar from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I may have had this before,
Yep.
but it might have been a different lifetime, but all this seems very, very familiar.
Yeah.
So thank you again. You did a great
Yeah.
job.
And it can wake up from the inside. It doesn't need a blah blah merchant on the outside. You may suddenly wake up one day and it's all very, very real.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, make a promise for future. Like these are wonderful teachings, and want to be reconnected again and again, however it happens.
Yeah, Ken, following on from what Myron was saying, and I think that's a good suggestion he makes there as well. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for all the teachings you've given on this and the Chenrezig teaching and so on, which certainly for me has been, significant. I could say life-changing, really, as a thing. So thank you for that. The other thing I was just thinking, actually, what would you say to people who are watching this on YouTube who have not been part of this smaller group, really, but who find something inspiring from this and would like to take it further?
Yeah, find if you can find a teacher who can do that, who's qualified and who has the time to give you the practice instructions. The practice instructions themselves aren't that complicated, but the chapters we didn't do show you how to do the practice, but then how to enhance the Mahamudra side of it, how to apply it at death is very important. So you don't need the whole rest of the text as a one-off kit. First you can learn to do the actual visualization that's directly related to this text, and then working on the Mahamudra side of it, just how, when you're visualizing yourself as Chenrezig and Amitabha above and all that kind of thing that's in the text. What does it mean to be practicing Dzogchen or Mahamudra as we do this? So once you've got the instructions, the authentic, qualified teacher of this lineage, how to do that visualization, then you can go and talk with another teacher, Mahamudra teacher, Dzogchen teacher, about enhancing the Dzogchen aspect of it. And then if you are wanting to prepare for dying, you can get that from another qualified teacher. It's not as though you need everything all at once. And if we can do everything up to this point to a level of satisfaction, let's say, I won't say mastery because that's a very big word, but to a level of satisfaction, it's already enormous.
And as far as our sort of continuity from this goes, my first thought was to continue reading through the next stages of the text in conjunction with the Chenrezig practice text that I have already and that I use in that to help to work with the two together. Does that sound on the right sort of lines?
Different lamas got different opinions about this. My own reference comes from the early days, the very early days of Samiling. Trungpa had gone a year or two before. We were poor in Tibetan lamas. The first year or two, maybe even 3, that I was at Samiling, people teaching there were Theravada bhikkhus and the odd Zen master. I mean, the occasional Zen master, but one of them was odd. So anyway, and we didn't have Tibetans teaching in the shrine room, doing courses. But the people in the community who were a minority, who wanted to do Chenrezig, who wanted to do Guru Rinpoche, and so on, were given one-on-one instructions by Akon Rinpoche, who were practicing together in the shrine room. So the deal there was we were practicing, we were studying, on the understanding that when Tibetan masters came, we'd go through the formalities, we'd get the empowerment, we'd get the scriptural transmissions from them, which are the main things, because we already had, so normally you need empowerment, scriptural transmission, practice instructions. We got the practice instructions. So the first one to come was the first Kalu Rinpoche, and he came with a team, 5 lamas out of 3-year retreat, and they brought the whole kit, the musical instruments, and nobody was in a rush. He didn't have anywhere else to go. There weren't other Dharma centers. He was there for weeks and weeks, and it was the most amazing transformation of Samiling. Samiling was in terms of numbers, basically a community, an amazing mixture of people, not all hippies. We had quite an elderly community, people who'd been Blavatsky, who'd been Gurdjieff, who'd been various Western traditions, magicians, white magic people, and then also the younger generation people, whatever you want to call it, hippies, beatniks. But it was basically a community, and the committed Buddhists who'd taken refuge were a minority and kind of looked down on, because they kind of lost the big picture, the plot, where all the religions are the same and all, the big picture man. You kind of lost it, and you've joined up with one religion. We really were a minority taking one-on-one teachings with Akon Rinpoche. And then Kalu Rinpoche turned up. First night he turned up was a full moon, I remember. Beautiful night. And his lamas sat on the front steps of Samiling with these, the radongs, and but instead of playing the specific things you play for this empowerment or this ceremony, they were improvising. It was like a bunch of jazz musicians.
Oh, really?
For several hours, they were sitting there, and it was like rearranging the energies of Samiling, of the Estelmuir Valley. And we were just, it's like they say these sounds open the floodgates of memory. And whatever connection people had had with Tibetan Buddhism from before, we were just there, hair on end, couldn't stop listening. So for the kind of hippie beatnik thing, this was the end of the line. It's like, the place has gone really Buddhist now, And so a lot of people left. They went to Findhorn, and then because of Kalu Rinpoche, then he gave so many teachings, and he taught the basics, the 4 ways of changing the mind. For people who were already doing the 4 foundations with Akon Rinpoche, he gave gave the Vajrasattva empowerment, all the other empowerments. He gave us Poa practice for dying, and so we got all the formal transmissions, but we'd already been doing the practices. So going back to your question, I've not given the lung for the rest of this text, but I think it's published anyway. It's published. There's published with a commentary by Chukinima Rinpoche. So it's out there in the public domain, and I think reading through it will be very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky to have Khenpo Rinpoche, 16 years. He came to Hawaii for 16 years.
Wonderful.
And he taught me Essence Mahamudra. the Great Middle Way, which now they call the Way of No Middle, and ume, and so no so no middle. So, free of extremes. So there's no middle. The Mahamudra is Dzogchen, so that's he taught Essence Mahamudra, and then there's Nalandra Bodhi, which is very good. And is this Mingyur Rinpoche? It's also got a really great online community.
Mm.
So there's a lot of other teachings that are coming through.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
But
wonderful.
yours is really essential, to the point. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then in the United States, the hippies and the beatniks, they were the essence of the Dharma. They really took on to the Dharma.
No, this is
And
what this is
the
what
original language was LSD language, so.
Yeah, but I remember a few teachers, first Kala Rinpoche, Dilgo Chensi Rinpoche, saying, these are wonderful people. He said, because they've given up everything to try and find out the truth. That's what Buddha did, and he said they're sincere people, and they tell you what's going on in their heads. I remember one amazing master, Gendun Rinpoche, in the Dordogne. He'd been 23 years in total solitary retreat in caves, eating turnips, mainly just turnips, like Milarepa. He'd been silent for so many years he couldn't speak. Tiny, tiny little voice like this. His vocal cords gone. And being with him was, it was really something else.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He didn't need teams. So he said, these Westerners in general, and the hippies in particular, he said they're such a relief for somebody like me. He said Tibetans never tell you what's going on in their mind. It's always, the sort of thing in the West where somebody will come with a question who said, if I had a friend who was going through this, what would you advise them, when they really mean I'm going through it? But, he said with a Tibetan, you have to guess and second guess. What are they really asking? They'll never tell you what's going on in them. And he said, these people, they just come and tell me, And he said, it's so straightforward. He said, this is what yogis are, straightforward. So anyway, here we go. So next week, for those of you coming back with the amazing teachings that came originally from Atisha. We have to be a bit careful with 7-point mind training, because Atisha never taught 7-point mind training. That's distilled from Atisha's own teachings, quite a few generations on. So, yeah. So it's Seichilbu and other people formulated these very, very famous 7 points from Atisha's teachings. But when Atisha taught what we're going to study, it was very, very secret. There was actually a vow of secrecy imposed on the disciples he taught it to. And it was fused, very much like this text that we're just leaving, it was fused with Mahamudra, because Atisha was a great master of Mahamudra. So have a lovely week, be well, and thank you for everything.
Thank you, Ken. Stay cool.
Bye bye.
Oh,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
Ken.
everyone.
That's